dare great things for Christ. Christ calls us to dare great things. In the marketplace, as well as in the mission field, there has never been a time like the present for the spirit of the Catholic entrepreneur. Now is the time for men and women of great courage and great vision to engage our church and our culture. Now is the time to dare great things. And here is your host as we dare great things, Father Nathan Cromley, the president and founder of the St. John Institute.
From 1979 to 2005, Pope John Paul II had the custom of writing a letter to all the priests in the Catholic world on the occasion of Holy Thursday. The letters are a treasury of wisdom and insight into leadership, and all leaders, regardless of denomination or state in life, can find insight here. In this beginning of our next session on What Can Priests Teach Us, we discover our own role as stewards and witnesses. Welcome, everybody. Glad to be back with you again. We're going to be looking today at a new session, and I'm really excited about this one because it's unique. I don't know what we do here at the St. John Leadership Network. I don't know anyone else who's doing this kind of thing. Maybe they are, but I certainly don't know about them. I'd love to meet them because what we're going to be looking at is how specifically the role of a Catholic priest can have lessons for what you do every day as basically non-Catholics or Catholics engaged in leading in the name of Christ in the secular world. And I just love that because most people immediately think, oh no, what's the priest got to tell me? I'm running a business. I'm managing a team of people. I'm starting my own enterprise, or I'm running my family and I'm staying at home in the domestic church. I mean, I'm literally as far away from being a priest as you could imagine. I'm a stay-at-home mom running her household, and I get it. But that's what I want to encourage you to start to broaden your mind a little bit. And instead of thinking about the differences, think about what we all have in commonality. Not only, for example, do priests have to share, most priests anyway, what the burdens that you have to share of running an organization. I'm thinking, you get ordained and then you go out into a parish and you might have a $10 million operation that you're suddenly running. And you've had almost zero training in how to run anything. I remember when I started the St. John Institute, right? I had to build a guest house. I mean, our ministry in Englewood, Colorado has, classes going on all the time, just like this one. And so we needed a guest house. And I remember reflecting on this because I had to basically do an extensive renovation on the rectory that existed here in order to make it, able to host guests. And I thought, here I am building a house. And up until this point, I had not even built a dog house. I mean, literally, I had never built anything in my life. And I was suddenly entrusted with this very big and expensive renovation. And priests have that all the time. We have to manage staffs. We have to do communications. We have to worry about the finances. We have to finance new projects. At the same time, we're dealing with populations of people who have the exact same dynamics, the exact same penchants for difficulty that the people in the world do as well. And so, what do priests know about leadership? A whole bunch. But, even more than that, there's the shared experience of being at the top, okay? And so if you're a mom or if you're running a company or if you have a new idea and you're trying to sell it to your manager so that they can bite on it because you think it's for the best interest of the company, whatever it might be, when you step forward into anything, you encounter that loneliness of, number one, being the one that's making a change. And that's, of course, very difficult because everybody else, they're happy back where they were. And you have to convince them of the need to make that change and then get them to be able to buy into your vision. And it's very difficult. You stand out. You can be isolated. And then number two, you carry the responsibility of knowing what is good and wanting to deliver the best thing. And that's a crushing weight that then you carry by yourself. And that same burden of leadership that is carried by people in the world is also, of course, carried by the priest. He has to stand up every day, think about that, and preach to the people that are in the church. Then the same people that are oftentimes the difficult ones and causing him great difficulty are the ones that then he has to sit there and try to, lead from the front. There's a lot in common between priests and leadership in the secular world. And what I want to do here, I want to look at what Pope John Paul II teaches us about this. Now, I know this might sound, very Catholic for everybody who's not Catholic, and is able to be here today. That's fine. Like, I try to just look past the specifically Catholic elements to understand what we're getting at. All right. And that is that in what John Paul II is teaching here for priests, there is nuggets of wisdom for you, for everybody. And I'm going to bring those out for you, okay? So what he did is every Holy Thursday, which is the Thursday before Jesus died on the cross on Good Friday, the Catholic Church remembers the institution of the Eucharist, right? So the Last Supper, we kind of have the whole Mass and liturgy around the Last Supper. And on that occasion, starting in 1979, Pope John Paul II was elected in 1978. Well, the very next, first spring there, he comes out, he's elected in October, and he writes a letter to all the priests in the world, right? And he started this custom, and he did it every single Holy Thursday. And so they've collected these into a book. From 1978 to 2004, the Pope wrote a letter to all the priests. What did he say? Well, what I want to do is I want to go through, a good number of these with you. And I want to take out from there the extract, the nugget of wisdom that you can apply in your own life. Because, well, this is an amazing opportunity. What would the Pope, the leader, say to the leaders of the Catholic Church? And what would he say to these men who are called into ministry? Well, there's a lesson there that we can transpose for those of you who are not called into ministry and who are working in the world. And I think that there's a nugget here because he's literally speaking to them as priests and therefore as leaders, right? So when we're trying to develop here at the St. John Leadership Network, we're trying to develop what is a Christian leadership? What is Christian leadership? Well, what a great place to look. But where the Pope talks to his priests, where the leader of the church speaks to the leaders in the local area, all about how to lead in Christ. And you see, this is the important thing for all of us to understand. Leadership in Christ does not mean leadership that keeps Christ on the outside. I mean, I think of it often this way. There's three kinds of Christian leader. There's, first of all, those who lead for Christ, okay? A leader for Christ is somebody who goes to their job every day, does the task of leadership that they need to do, and they do it as a gift to Jesus Christ, okay? So that's neat. So that's already, I'm taking my faith into work because I'm doing my work with faith. Right? So I'm doing my work as a gift to God. I sacrifice. I start at the beginning of the day, I pray. At the end of the day, I pray. And then I do what I do, and I do it correctly. I do it with integrity. I make good quality things. I treat my customers with dignity. I try to be kind to my employees because my work is a gift for Christ. Right? That's great. That's first level. The second level of leadership, Christian leadership, is leadership with Christ. Leadership with Christ is where, I might imitate him. I say, well, how did he treat his apostles? That's how I'm going to then train my employees. Or I might say to, I'm going to bring my faith outwardly into the workplace and put a crucifix up at my desk. I'm going to lead with Christ, right? You're going to know that I'm leading and you're going to know that Jesus is with me in my leadership. But my leadership remains, kind of normal leadership. And then, of course, then I do with my faith. And that's amazing. And that's where, most of the Christian business work is right now. It's best business practices you could put in that are inspired by faith. And then you can, of course, make Jesus known and your faith known, in the way that's appropriate in the workplace. It's marvelous, right? But there's a third level. And that's the level that I want to work with you on, okay? That's why you've come to the St. John Leadership Network. And that is that to lead in Christ. How do I lead in Christ? Well, leading in Christ, that's where Christ leads through me. The influence of Christ is brought to the world literally through my leadership. My leadership becomes an instrument of Christ, which means it's a different kind of leadership. It's not the same. It doesn't change the structure. What we're doing in Christian leadership when we lead in Christ, it looks on the outside exactly like it would look. I mean, if you did a good job leading for Christ or with Christ, it's like you still have to talk to people. You have to make plans. You have to present them. You have to persuade. You have to convince. You have to sell. All these different things. Okay, but at the same time, the action is changed and transformed from the inside out. Because now you're doing those things with your heart in union with Jesus. which means that you're going to be attuned to him, and he can use you as his instrument to spread his wonderful grace into work. And that's what I want to focus in on. And that's why these writings by John Paul II are so amazing. The first one he does here in 1979, he's literally talks about the priest as a steward and a witness. And I want to go into that with you.
Would you like to hear more from Father Nathan? Join the St. John Leadership Network and receive a 2-minute glance at the gospel every Sunday morning right to your phone. To learn more, go to www.stjohnleadershipnetwork.org/member and join for free today.
So we're looking together at how John Paul II writes to priests. On every Holy Thursday throughout the year, he writes these letters, and there's just such nuggets in here of amazing, of the link between the two. But I guess I really want to share with you the nugget. Leave behind the priest part if you're not a priest, don't get caught up in that. Or even the Catholic part if you're not a Catholic. Focus in on what he's trying to say here, because it's really worth our time. In his very first letter, for example, he writes about the call that priests have to stand out, to be noticed, to be seen as people of excellence. That's an amazing thought, right? This is the call. Now, we all fall short of our calls in many ways, and we can emphasize that if we want to, but the call remains the same. Regardless of how well we live it out, the call remains the same, and that's what I think is interesting. He talks about how in the sacrament of orders, a mark is imprinted on the soul of the priest. Okay, this is Catholic theology. It's our understanding of things, right? But it means that the priest is sealed at the very core of his being, of who he is, with this priestly identity of this act of service that he has and of leadership. And he says that this priestly personality, so this kind of who we are as a priest, must be visible to others and as a clear and plain sign. That's a really interesting way for him to put it. It's hard, right? Because, and he even mentions this. He says, you're gonna. There's a lot of people out there that want you to secularize what you do, to not say that you're there as a sign of God. And they want you just to kind of be normal, to water it down, to fit in with everybody, say that you're a social leader of different groups. And he says, you must not do that. Now just think about that. That's quite a challenge. I mean, after all, we're black every day. We got our collar on every day. We're saying our prayers every day. We're living, apart from the rest of the world. And so, the temptation could be, well, why would I do all of that? Why wouldn't instead I simply fit in with my followers? Like, why would I pretend to strive to be any different, to lift them up, when in fact I could instead spend my time communing with them, getting to be at their level? And of course, it's always both. It's a both and and of that. Like, you have to commune with your people, you have to be accessible to them, etc. But he said, don't forget that you're called to be holy. Now, I wanted to transpose that for you into your secular context, right? Because you're not called to be priests, but you are the leader. Now, a leader is different than a boss, right? A boss tells you what to do. A boss organizes work. All leaders in the workplace, are going to be bosses at one level or another. But a leader in a workplace is much more than a boss. And if you allow, it'd be easy to kind of like go down and say, you know what, I'm just here to make the thing work, to move things along, to make sure y'all get paid. I'm your boss. And that becomes transactional. So you do this for me, and then I'll pay you in exchange. And all I'm doing is facilitating the exchange. You give me your life, you give me your time, and I'll give you money. All right, in the middle is these tasks to be organized. That's such a defeatist representation. And the moment we do that, we stop really leading the people. We're not leading anything. We're facilitating something at that point. If you as a manager are just managing functionality, you are not living up to the depth of your vocation in Christ. He didn't just give you a function, he gave you people. He gave you products that will impact people's lives. He gave you talents and skills, and he gave you the important role of facilitating the communion of everybody who's working underneath you. These are all the essential aspects of being a leader. But you see, to claim those essential aspects, you have to claim, a certain morality. You have to say that actually I'm striving for higher things with my job. I am not here just to process work. I am not here just to give you a paycheck, and I'm not here to get myself a paycheck, right? See how that meant the mentality of material goods can reduce us. And it can be the same thing with you at home with the kids. It's really hard to parent, to tell them they have to go to mass on Sunday and miss their soccer practice, you know? Yeah, you have to miss soccer practice because there's mass. It's like, but mom, there's soccer. It's like, I'm sorry. But see, to do that now, you're introducing a tension. You're introducing a tension between you and your followers, right? Well, that same tension, that's what the priest has to introduce as well. Because I'm not serving you as a priest to simply be with you. I'm serving you as a priest to lead you forward, to take you to a deeper level, to bring you into a higher place. And I can't let go of that. I'm the steward of a higher mystery. All right, well, my friends, you are Christians, so you are stewards of a higher mystery. Don't let anybody else claim the world of work when Jesus Christ claimed it first. He came into the world of work, into this world as a worker. He was the son of a worker. He lived, and then, of course, the apostles also were men of work. And so the gospel message, we belong there. And we want to let go of this and say, we don't know if we want to bring our faith into the workplace. I mean, I'm serious. Are you serious? If you don't bring faith into the workplace, there will be no faith in the workplace. Think about what a workplace would look like without faith. My goodness. And we all sit back and we say, well, it's going to be okay. People are good people. And I'm like, I'm not sure. I'm not so sure, number one. And then I'm not so sure that they'll stay good, number two, without the help of God. And without the inspiration of God. History would show you the opposite. Whenever God is lost sight of, the next thing we lose sight of is human dignity. And we end up losing all of that goodness of work. We make cheap products. We lay people off all the time. We don't develop talents. We let competition squash teamwork in the workplace. We don't care about the value of the families of the workers. We don't pay them a fair wage. All of those things. What's going to guarantee? What else is going to guarantee that those things stay in place if there isn't a belief in a transcendent God for whom all work is done? Well, who's going to bring them that knowledge? That's your role. You're a Christian leader. And when you're a Christian leader, you're not just there making God known. You're there defending and promoting the rights of authentic human flourishing in the workplace. Always remember that. You are there to make the workplace better for every human being who works there. And that is part of your sacred calling. That's why Christ put you there. Do you think Christ, put you in the workplace so that you could become super rich? If he did, that's not it. It's a vocation that's deeper than making money. It's about shepherding the human soul and process and making our society a better one. And for this, he has called you. Okay, you can't forget that. Just like the priest can't forget that he was made to bring people to heaven, so you cannot forget that you were made to bring heaven to earth, okay? It's like, and that is so important. What's that going to require of you? That you accept to be outstanding, that you embrace your call to excellence, just like the priest has to. He says, it may sometimes seem to us, this is John Paul II, that they do not want this, or that they wish us to be in every way like them. At times, it even seems that they demand this of this. And here one is very much in need of a profound sense of faith and the gift of discernment. In fact, it is very easy to let oneself be guided by appearances and fall victim to a fundamental illusion of what is essential, right? We can be deluded into thinking that we shouldn't be outstanding Christian leaders in the workplace, that we should just be bosses, get it done, be like everybody else. It'd be so much easier, right? And the Pope is like calling us out on that. It's like, no, not right. It might be easy, but it's not right, okay? And he goes, those who call for the secularization of priestly life and applaud its various manifestations will undoubtedly abandon us when we succumb to temptation. It's amazing. We shall then cease to be necessary and popular, right? So he ends up pointing out to priests, hey, it's a trick. Well, I think it's a trick for you too. And I just put it this way. Would you rather get to the end of your life, having run your career, having run your business, having owned your company, having done your work, only to say, I did it for the man, right? I did it for somebody else. I did it for money. Is that really how you want to end up? You'll end up dissatisfied and sad. It's not what it's all about. There's something deeper, something more. And I want you to learn that.
Would you like to start your Thursday mornings with a scriptural leadership lesson? Join the St. John Leadership Network, where Father Nathan hosts a 30-minute call at 6:30 a.m. in all 4 U.S. time zones. To learn more, go to www.stjohnleadershipnetwork.org/member and join for free today.
Going deeper into this Holy Thursday letter of 1979 from Pope John Paul II, where he writes to his priests, right? And therefore, he's writing to the leaders of the church. He reminds them also that they're called to be a witness. Now, this is, very similar to what he's talking about earlier when he's talking about the need that they have to be outstanding, to stand out, to be remarkable, to be visible, to be seen as leaders. Very hard. Right? Again, it's the easiest thing to not parent the kids, just to make them all happy. And, and today it's especially that way because, leaders are confused about, is there really a defined good? We live in an era which has called truth into question. And because it's called truth into question, has lost sight of the way to define a true good. Meaning, if there's nothing that's true, then even goodness, we don't know what is true good. We just say that life ends up becoming practical, and whatever pleases you is what you follow. And so we become pragmatic about what is pleasing. So whatever helps you to be pleased ends up being, if it's allowed by the community, is endorsed. And so we say, well, in the end, our life becomes one of racking up pleasures, or racking up the ability to have pleasures, and then providing them for our family. And that's the perspective that we live in. There's no transcendent moralities, no principles that go beyond, the system of our daily life and our culture. Okay, so if we're in that mentality, my goodness, on the one hand, it seems like we've got it going on because, hey, it's all great. On the other hand, look at how limited that perspective is. It's limited because on the first hand, the highest thing you can get is pleasures in life. I mean, it's like you could have a 40-foot yacht off the coast of Miami and be bored. What are you doing in that yacht? It's like, I'm just kind of enjoying, but for a time, there are so many people who are full of things on the outside and who are very sad on the inside. And if you do not have love at the center of your life, real love, then those things can be illusory, right? Well, now all of a sudden I've got a higher perspective. My life is not just for pleasure, right? My life is to be shared with others. Okay, well, now you got a higher ethic. And imagine if you were to be able to say, my life is not just to be able to be shared with others, but to be able to be shared with God. Now imagine if that was your height. Well, would that be a bad thing? No, it'd be an amazing thing. Well, that's actually the Christian ethic. That's actually what we're called to bring into this world. We're here to shepherd our people, in other words, to remind the world, to wake it up, that physical pleasures and physical things are a good starting point, but they're not the end goal. There's something more. And therefore, I need to witness to that in the world. And I think about this a lot because sometimes people say, I don't know what faith looks like being brought into work. And sometimes it's you really can't do a lot on the outside about faith in the workplace. You can do a few things, but you can't do a lot. You work in a publicly traded company, or you work under an HR manager that's really aggressive, or all kinds of things in those situations. But I'll tell you, one thing that you can do is be an ambassador to other workers, even outside of the company. There's something so powerful about the witness of a peer who says, I too am a professional, but I go to mass before I go to work. I too am a professional, but I believe in the power of God and in the truth of the Bible. What an amazing witness that is. Because now, peer to peer, you're saying, hey, the materialism of our world and the ethic that says that there's no really thing that's good or transcendently true in life is actually limited. Man, there's something so much greater, so much better out there. And I want to tell you about it. And wow, now we've recaptured work by being a witness to the other workers. to other people in our trade, in our profession, by taking a stance for why we work the way that we do. A Christian will work differently from a non-Christian. And I all respect all non-Christians, but we will work differently. We will work differently because we're working from a different motivation. And the insistence that we need to witness to in the place of fairness to customers, of fairness to employees, of great culture in ourselves, great culture amongst the people we work. These are things that are of immense value, right? And there are ways that we witness to Christ. And so the Pope is leaning in on his priests and he's like, guys, he says, do not forget that you're there to bring people to heaven. He says, our pastoral activity demands that we should be close to people in all their problems, but that we should be close to them in a priestly way. And what do you think? What is that? And he says, well, our task is to serve truth and justice in the dimension of human temporality, but always in a perspective that is the perspective of eternal salvation. Right? So he's reminding the priest that, yes, you're in the world, you're with the people, you're doing things, and that's all good, but don't forget the higher goal. Well, in the same way, we could transpose that home. You could say, yeah, you've got to change diapers, and you've got to fold laundry, and you've got to teach children, how to spell, and you've got to do all of those things. But don't forget that you're doing those things as the hands, the heart, the feet, the love of God for this world. Meaning open. You do both. You do the secular. You do the sales and the expansions and the mergers and the acquisitions and the trainings. You do all of that. And yet you do it with a perspective that is open to what is higher. And this is the vocation. We cannot let our world be capped off and closed down in its own materialistic drive. We have to be prophets. And that simply means pointing out that there's a higher and more excellent way. There's a God above, and that's why Christians are here below.
Dare great things for Christ.
Share your feedback with Father Nathan. Send us an email at communications@stjohninstitute.org. That's communications@stjohninstitute.org. And visit www.stjohninstitute.org and sign up for our newsletter to receive updates from Father Nathan.